Hey guys, how's it going? It's Ryan back here, and welcome back to another episode on the Ryan Racing channel. And wow, what an end to the season that was. Yeah, that was just crazy. A lot of controversy to talk about, of course, and I will get to that. I'll give you my opinion. Um, and in case you can't tell from what I'm wearing, in my opinion, the right result happened. But we'll talk about that. I've got a lot to say about it, and there's a lot to go mention on it. But first, I just want to say, like, holy hell, what a season we had. That for me is probably the best season of F1 I can remember watching. I've watched F1 for years and years, and we have not had a fight like that I can quite remember for a long time. It's pretty much been almost neck and neck all season. There's been times where Lewis was on top and he was ahead, and then Max was on top, and it was just brilliant. I mean, to be fair, it was only ever the two drivers in it for the whole season. No one else came close to them two. Those two were operating on just different levels. They were up there and everyone else was like down here. That's no disrespect to the rest of the field. We had some amazing drives from other people, like Sergio Perez had some amazing drives this season, being an amazing teammate for Verstappen. Even Bottas started to come alive a bit, after his contract was out with Mercedes, and I thought he became a different driver. He started doing quite well. Of course, Lando had some good times. Danny Rick won his first race for McLaren. We've had some amazing drivers this season, but Max and Lewis have just been on a different level compared to the rest of the field. And it's no disrespect, but I don't think you can argue with that. Them two have just been on a different planet, and it was always going to come down to them two battling for the title. And we also did have a bit of a fight for the constructors. In the end, Mercedes won it quite comfortably, but we did have a bit of a fight. So it made this season very competitive and interesting, and that's all I've wanted from F1 for a long time, because in the Turbo hybrid era, it's been a wee bit boring because Mercedes have just dominated. I mean, we haven't had a champ. This is the first time we've had a champion outside of Mercedes since the turbo hybrid era began, because it's either been Lewis that's won it or Nico Rosberg. So it's just been a Mercedes champion every time, and it's been a bit boring. So I'm glad we've had someone else win it, and I'm looking forward to next season now with the new cars, new rules and regulations. It should be more competitive, but we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, so this season has always been amazing. But in this video, we're talking about the actual race itself, and I'm going to do a season review later on. I'm also going to go back and have a look at my predictions, and I got a couple right actually, which I'm pretty happy with, but we'll do that in a different video. But today we're just going to talk about the race itself. So the start of the race, we had obviously Max took pole, which was quite unexpected, but he had an amazing lap to take pole, and I was delighted for him. And then we had the start of the race, and he had a poor start. Hamilton's reaction speed was just lightning quick. He was on him straight away, he took the lead straight away. Then we had a very controversial moment into one of the first corners where Max was ahead, and obviously Lewis was off track, and Lewis just went completely off track, and he got a massive advantage. It was almost, I don't know, almost like 2-3 car lengths, or even 9 point. You'd even say it maybe 2 seconds, well, maybe not 2 seconds, but there was a hell of an advantage there that Lewis got. And we've seen it over the course of the season. I mean, if you go off track, and you're still in the lead, you have to give the position back. That is the rules. But we saw during this race the rules don't mean anything, because according to Michael Massey, the race director, Lewis was not instructed to give the position back. He was only instructed to give the advantage back, which I didn't think was the rule. I always thought it was you have to give the position back. And apparently he'd slowed down enough for Verstappen to catch up, which I don't think was the case. I think that was very unfair, what happened there. So that was our first controversial moment. But then, Lewis went on to dominate majority of the race. He was just too fast. And we did see some amazing defending from Sergio Perez, which gave Max a good 7 seconds. So, I mean, that helped Max a lot. And then obviously we had the first virtual safety car for when Kimi Unov? I can't quite remember. We had a virtual safety car which helped out as well, helped Max out. But the main thing we have to talk about is when Latifi crashed out on was it corner 9? I can't remember. It was the same corner which Raikkonen had crashed out on in FP2, I believe it was, which during that case brought out a red flag, but during the race itself it brought out a safety car, which is where the controversy starts. Apparently Michael Masi was actually asked before the race if there was going to be a similar incident to that, would he red flag it, and he said no apparently, so I suppose he stuck to his guns. Was it the right call? Maybe not. Maybe, in my opinion, I think the race probably should have been red flagged because Latifi's car was right on the racing line. There was a lot of debris. You know, you're never going to get the marshals clearing that up. That was definitely like a crane job. That should have been dealt with in a red flag manner, and the race should have been restarted. I mean, of course, Lewis lost his advantage, but that's F1. That's what happens when there's a safety car. It's safety reasons. Everyone has to slow down and be at the same pace for safety reasons. You can't have cars going at like 180 odd miles an hour when you've got people on a racetrack trying to get rid of debris and cars and whatnot. It's just safety reasons. That's how it works. Okay. I mean, is it fair? You know, maybe not, but it's the rules. Safety should always come first when it comes to situations like that. So that's what happened there. But the safety car shouldn't have been the right call, I felt. And then, of course, you've got the whole argument, of course, pitting under the safety car, which is what Red Bull did. Hamilton, I think he was kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place. He couldn't really afford to have pitted because if he did, he was losing track position to Max. So he was in a bad situation there because his tyres were about 25 laps old at that point. Max had to fit a new, fresh set. Well, he already had a new, fresh set of tyres under the virtual safety car, I believe. He was on a new set of hards and he was closing them down. Not enough though, because there was about 11 seconds advantage for Hamilton when the crash happened. But then with the safety car, Max had pitted for a new set of softs, which obviously would give him a great advantage in that situation. Lewis couldn't have pitted again, so we had that. And then this is probably the most controversial thing that happened. Instead of ending the race under a safety car, which I have to agree with, I think it was the right call. It would not have been fair, I think, to either driver. It wouldn't be competitive to end the race under safety cars. Obviously, you know, you cannot overtake during safety cars. You're not allowed to. But the controversial thing that happened was we had an instant where there was lapped cars. I think there was about maybe 7 lapped cars at that stage between the top 3 drivers. So between Max and Lewis, there was 5 lapped cars. And then between Max and Carlos Sainz, who was in third, there was about 3, I think. And the rules apparently state when it comes to lapped cars under safety car, they are all supposed to unlap themselves. But in this instant, Michael Masi, the race director, decided only the 5 cars between Lewis and Max would unlap themselves. He felt it would be the best way to give a 1-lap show for the title. I mean, yeah, it's a hard one to call because I don't want to sound too biased. Obviously, I wanted Max to win. Okay, I'm a Red Bull and I'm a Max fan. I wanted him to win. I mean, the way Lewis lost, it was completely unfair to him. I have to be honest. It was a bit unfair to him. The red flag probably would have been the better way to end it. But then when you choose to go the safety car route, it's also unfair to end the race under safety car. That would have just been total bollocks. That would not have been competitive at all. But I mean, if they had let all the cars unlap themselves, there could potentially still have been a shootout for the win. It could have potentially been a free car shootout because you have Carlos Sainz in the mix. But, I mean, it's a rule that I've not 100% familiar with. I've been watching F1 for years and I still don't understand all the rules. And that's, of course, where the controversy happened. And, of course, after the race, Mercedes lodged their complaint. They were claiming breach of articles and protocols and whatnot. I mean, they had every right to do it. I guess they did have every right to do it because they were feeling aggrieved. I mean, then they still would won the Constructors' Championship for a record 8th time, so they should have been happy with that, but they weren't just satisfied. They wanted Hamilton to get the title, obviously. I mean, fair play to Hamilton himself. His interview, he conducted it with, you know, all the honour you'd expect from him. As much as I may not be a Lewis fan, he is still one of the best drivers of all time, and you know, he didn't deserve to lose it the way he did, to be fair to him, I have to be honest. I would much rather have seen maybe a 5-lap shootout with the red flag. You know, I mean, I'm still delighted Max won. I mean, you know, he deserved that win so much. And I don't want people to come out and say that his you know, his title's tarnished. People will come out and say that, but just look at the stats for this season, you know, like 10 wins he's had. He had more laps led than any other driver this season. He's had more podiums than any other driver this season, more poles. His average points, you know, he deserves it. He just does deserve it, okay? Maybe not the way it ended. I would much rather he won it in a less controversial fashion, but let's be honest, it was always going to end that way. There's been controversy throughout the whole season between them two. You go down to the incident back at Silverstone where Lewis basically took him out of the race, put him to hospital. He only got 10-second time penalty. I don't think that was dealt with in the right manner. But, you know, that's what happens. And then we've got the incident where they both took each other out in Monza, I believe it was. That it's been happening all season. There's been back and forth. It was always going to end on probably a controversial manner. But, you know, that's F1. It happens. Like, this sport is not new to controversy. And a lot of people probably were first-time watchers for that, and they don't understand the rules. And me personally, I've been watching the sport for a number of years, and I still don't understand the rules. Like, it seems that they were sort of just made up as they went along. But and then the FIA cannot reverse the decision. It's too big a call, because at the end of the day, the race director is the one in charge. He has to make the call. Michael Massey made the call. Whether it was the right call or not, it's to be decided. I still think the FIA need to have a long hard look at themselves. Like, it's been a bit of a disaster for him this season. Like, also Jeddah was a nightmare of a track. It was not a safe track to be driving on. We saw a lot of shit go wrong on that track. But that's arguments for another day. I'm hoping next season we see just a bit more consistency from the FIA. And another thing I really hope happens next season, for the team principals not to be able to talk to the race director. I mean, we've had it happen all season with Total Wolff talking to him, Christian Horner talking to him. You know, I mean, you shouldn't be allowed to do that, because you can almost influence the race director in that situation. I mean, I mean, by all means, you maybe talk to him if there's something you're not happy with, but don't talk directly to the race director, the guy that's in charge of running the race and handing out all the penalties and whatnot. But yeah, that's what I have to say of the situation. I am delighted Max won. Not delighted how he won, but he still deserves it. And hats off to Hamilton for being an amazing competitor for the whole season. And I'm just hoping for more competitive next season. Maybe just not just one driver. Maybe have a couple of drivers, and even not just two teams going at it. I've a couple of teams going at it. But we'll wait and see. Anyway, guys, this video I've ranted and raved long enough now about this. I just want to get my opinion out there, and not everyone's going to agree with me, which is fair enough. If you don't agree with me, fair enough. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. That's just mine. And I'll see you in the next video, where I'll be going over I'll be looking back at my predictions for the season and see how many I got right. Anyway, guys, see you in the next one. Peace out. Bye bye.